Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, The Mother Speaks Tarot. Welcome to my Facebook friends. Today I'm going to be reading chapter 6 of my book, my first book, Perception, the Two Yet One, book 1. Sorry about the backwards. I had a camera that had a mirroring option, but it didn't record as smoothly as my phone, so all right, so for my Facebook friends, I won't be able to respond to comments. I will be uploading this to YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. I'm going to be reading my entire book. It's a free audiobook experience, and let's get going. Chapter 6, Life Lessons. Life's Lessons. Thursday morning, February 25th, 2010. Happy Valley, Hong Kong. After years of studying Wing Chun Kung Fu, Luna was dying to experience the Chinese culture, and so the Martins moved to the bustling metropolis of Hong Kong, where Luna turned 16. The little family moved about every 2 years because that was all it took before Luna realized that a particular city was ending up exactly the same for her as the last. Friendless. Sure, a girl, or even a few of them, would talk to her for a week or two and accept her friend requests on Facebook. But then something would go wrong. They wanted her to join them in breaking rules and bad behavior, and she refused, essentially making her a goody-goody to them, and, therefore, persona non grata. Or she talked about God too much. Or she accidentally bossed them. Or they just mysteriously began avoiding her and unfriended her, perhaps, she suspected, because of her mood swings. Teenage girls didn't care about diagnosed disorders, and teenage boys seemed afraid of girls that had been diagnosed with them. Luna began to accept her friendlessness and focus on her studies more than her attempts at socializing, figuring that she would make friends someday, perhaps in college. But for now, she had to endure high school for a little while longer. A new school always meant a new uniform, and as she walked up the street from the bus stop that morning about a month into the new year, Luna was dressed in the latest one, a boring blue A-line skirt and a white blouse that barely buttoned over her boobs. As she walked up to the entrance, she saw another American girl, Mackenzie Cresley, sneering at her. Luna ignored her, having begun to recognize what kind of girl would always be mean to her, and Mackenzie was definitely one of them, a girl with throngs of adoring friends that she used like puppets. Luna walked by Mackenzie and her minions as quickly as she could. That bitch is so stuck up, Mackenzie and all her friends laughed. Both hurt and anger welled up in Luna as she walked down the hall. Hot tears stung her eyes, and her nostrils swelled. She wiped them quickly and began her deliberate breathing, taking in deep breaths and then letting them out slowly. But it wasn't working quickly enough. The tears were coming faster than she could wipe them. She went into the girls' bathroom to calm down and clean up. She was breathing deeply and wiping her eyes when the door opened. It was Mackenzie and her friends. Mackenzie rolled her eyes once she saw that Luna was crying. Oh my God, what a crybaby. She's definitely emo. Luna's fists were clenched at her sides, but she didn't move. What? Said Mackenzie. Are you actually going to say something? Luna just stared angrily at Mackenzie. She was so shocked whenever anyone was mean to her because she never did anything to elicit it. Tears rolled down her face as she searched for some kind of cutting retort, but she was so upset that her mind had gone blank. Mackenzie looked disappointed for a moment before putting her attitude back on. God, you're so stupid. Mackenzie's and her friends' laughter echoed behind them as they left the bathroom. They let the door slam, and Luna was alone. Luna stood there in the silence for several moments, tears running down her face. She so wished she had said something. Just so you guys know, I don't have when somebody thinks something in the book, it's italicized. Okay? But for your benefit, I say they thought. Okay. I should have said, "Fuck you, bitch," and punched her in her stupid face, she thought. Her shoulders dropped. Yeah, real mature, Luna, she thought. Luna couldn't imagine why Mackenzie even bothered with her. And then it dawned on her why Mackenzie had looked disappointed, why she was being so mean to her. Luna hadn't given Mackenzie a chance. She just assumed she was horrible, and so Mackenzie had been horrible in response. She cried harder. "Oh man, I don't want to go around hurting people," she thought. "I just don't want to be hurt anymore," she whispered in between sobs. She covered her face and cried. Socializing was such a confusing puzzle for her. She never meant any harm, but hurt or annoyed people anyway, with her know-it-all ways, with her bossiness, or, now, by ignoring them. Why couldn't she ever do anything right? Okay. Don't start beating yourself up. Calm down, she thought. Re-employing her breathing techniques, she finally got a hold of herself and splashed cool water on her face. A few more cleansing breaths later, she left the bathroom for class. Later that afternoon, while walking down the hallway at a pretty good clip to the cafeteria, out of nowhere, Luna tripped over something and fell onto her hands and knees. She heard a crack and felt a blinding pain in her pinky finger as she hit the cement. Oof! Ow! On her stinging knees, she looked at her finger. It was obviously broken, bent into a right angle. Even more pain hit her. Ah! A panic attack gripped Luna. She felt the blood drain from her face, and her mind launch into mania, into a state that felt surreal. She was freaking out at the sight of her finger. She was losing control. Faintly, she heard laughing and looked over. Through a milky haze, she saw it was Mackenzie. She had tripped Luna. But Luna was in too much pain and too panicked to get angry. She wanted to back up a wall. She wanted to run away. She wanted her mom. Her heart was about to beat out of her chest. She had never broken a bone before and was terrified. "I saw the whole thing, Luna," said a voice behind her. Luna turned to see who it was. It was one of her teachers, Sister Mary Mai. Sister Mary Mai gave Mackenzie a disapproving eye. Mackenzie's face fell. "Come on, dear." Luna took the nun's hand in her good one and, in a daze, went to the office with her and Mackenzie. Mackenzie was sent home to await further punishment by the school, and Lisa picked Luna up from school and rushed her to the hospital. Lisa and Luna had to wait for an entire agonizing hour, but they were finally called back for x-rays, and now were waiting in an exam room for the results. Tears rolled down Luna's cheek as Lisa held her, but Luna felt a lot better than she had. Her mother's presence gave her a great deal of soothing security. The door opened. The short, round doctor walked in and closed the door behind him. "Hello." He looked at the chart and then back at Luna. Mrs. Martin. "I'm Dr. Hahn." He cleared his throat. Mrs. Martin, why did you wait so long to bring Luna in for treatment? Her finger is so obviously broken." Lisa stared at the doctor, clearly confused and insulted. "What? What do you mean?" Dr. Hahn pulled out the x-ray, held it up to the light, and pointed to a very white spot. "You see that? That bone has already begun healing. At least 24 hours worth of healing. Why did you wait a full day to bring her in?" But I didn't. She broke it maybe 2 hours ago. The doctor didn't look as though he believed Lisa. Luna looked down and saw that the scrapes on her knees were already healed. The scabs were already falling off. That happened the last time I scraped my skin. I must have healing powers. What? No, you don't, Luna. Only crazy people think they have powers, she thought. Lisa dug out the early dismissal note from her purse. The doctor examined it closely, and then gave it back to her, obviously confused too. He was silent for a few moments. Luna sensed he still didn't quite believe them. Finally, he spoke. Well, whatever the case may be, since it healed like that, it must be rebroken and reset, or it will stay like that for the rest of your life. Luna launched into another panic attack. No, no, Mom, don't let him. As usual, her mother was calm and stoic, realistic. Luna, sweetheart, calm down. He doesn't have to do that. If you don't care that your finger is like that from now on. Luna looked at her finger. It made her feel faint. We can give her a sedative for the procedure and, of course, pain medication. Oh my God, they're going to give me a shot, she thought. Dr. Hahn took a syringe and an alcohol pad from the medical tray and headed over to Luna. Luna tensed up. More tears fell from her eyes. No, she wailed quietly. Just hold on to me, sweetheart, said Lisa as she embraced her daughter. Dr. Hahn's expression soured, and Luna knew it was because Luna, at 16, was acting like a little kid, but she didn't care. She couldn't help it. Dr. Hahn rubbed her arm with the alcohol pad, and Luna held on to her mother harder. Close your eyes, honey. Don't look, Lisa said. Luna shut her eyes tight and squealed as she felt the tiny burning pain of the needle. Almost immediately, she felt the sedation, but it didn't knock her out. Through the haze of the medication, she realized that she was going to have to live through her bone being broken. Again. And set. No, I won't be able to stand the pain. I can't stand pain, she thought. The doctor put her finger in position. She gritted her teeth as she waited for the blow. The moment the doctor broke her finger, she felt the excruciating pain and would never forget it. Never. She cried so loudly that it made the doctor and Lisa hold their ears. Dr. Hahn re-examined Luna's finger. Good. That broke perfectly, he said. You've been very brave, Miss Martin. Let's get it set, and you'll be on your way. As Luna shivered in her mother's arms, the doctor put a long metal cap lined with foam over her finger and taped it up well. She watched him do it, and once he was done, she actually felt a little better. It must feel good to help others, she thought. The sedative and pain medication had her dozing, and the next thing Luna knew, she was in a taxi with her mom. Why are you always so scared, Luna? Lisa asked quietly into Luna's hair. 'Cause bad things can happen at any time, replied Luna sleepily. What bad things, hun? What has ever happened to you that you're so afraid of bad things happening? That old lady, Luna whispered. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Oh, well, I know that was horrible, honey, but that can't be the only reason. You've always been like this, ever since you were tiny, about 3. Luna didn't like to worry her parents more than she already did, and didn't want to tell her mother the real reason, the repetitive nightmares. Since she had commanded he not come around, Luna hadn't seen Michael. But seemingly in his place came the nightmares again. Nightmares for weeks, sometimes months at a time, or longer. In most of the nightmares, she was forced to fight a very large person, or sometimes a group of people. The fright and pain of being beaten woke her. The very first of these repeating nightmares, which had happened when she was very young, hadn't been about being beaten. She had dreamed that her mother had died. She dreamed that dream over and over for at least a year, maybe longer. The nightmares were vivid and felt very real, and she knew that they had traumatized her just as much as this day had. Lisa had called Jim, and he was waiting at the door of the apartment building for them when they arrived. Lisa handed Luna off to him. Jim picked Luna up as if she were as light as a leaf and carried her inside, cradling her against his chest the entire elevator ride. "She's exhausted, Lise," whispered Jim as he carried Luna to her room. "She's not the only one. Her moods take me with her. It was horrible." "Oh, Lise, you should have called me. I'd have come down there. Then I'd just had two people freaking out." Jim didn't answer. "Just teasing, Jim," said Lisa. "We were fine. Just one of those days. A day for life's lessons. Today's lesson. Life's not fair, and sometimes it hurts like a bitch." That might be true, but Luna dozed off, feeling safe. It's over. The worst is over now, she thought. That same morning, North Highlands, California. Dressed for school, 16-year-old Sonny snuck into the kitchen for some food. The food wasn't for him. He only drank coffee in the mornings. The food was for the young raccoon he had found nearly dead on his lawn, more likely chewed on by a dog, 3 days ago, and had secretly nursed back to health in an old dog cage in his closet. He'd named the raccoon for its favorite food, crackers. Grabbing crackers, cheese, and a couple slices of ham, Sonny hurried to his room to feed his furry friend. Because of the garter snake fiasco, Sonny was diligent about keeping crackers a secret, which wasn't too hard because he was alone at the house a lot. He'd bought the dog cage at a yard sale after he found crackers, no more handmade cages, and dressed the animal's wounds and fed him water and broth from a dropper until crackers felt better and could eat solid food. Sonny quietly closed his bedroom door, went over to his closet and opened it. The raccoon was already excited to eat. "Here you go, little buddy." Sonny smiled as he watched the animal he had nursed back to life thrive. His wounds were scabbed up. "You're welcome. You're a good boy. Go back to sleep. I think you're almost ready for me to let you go. To go home. We'll see how you are when I get back from school, okay?" As soon as school was over with, Sonny hurried home. He had to release crackers before anyone else came home. But as he neared the house, he had a strange feeling. He slowed down. Nothing looked different about the house, but something was wrong. He began running. He ran up the steps, unlocked the front door as quickly as he could, flung it open, and stepped inside. The curtains were drawn. His eyes hadn't adjusted yet, but he smelled the familiar, alarming odor. He closed the front door and turned around. Sonny's blood ran cold. Ralph was sitting in his chair in the darkened living room. The room smelled strongly of liquor and of burnt something. "Dad," he murmured and glanced in the direction of his room. What am I doing here?" Ralph asked in a disturbingly quiet voice. Sonny couldn't answer. He was pretty much terrified. He had seen Ralph use his belt on his brothers while he was drunk, and Sonny had always been so grateful it hadn't been him. But he had a feeling it was going to happen, now, and no one else was home to help him. "No," he thought. "What am I doing here?" repeated Ralph as if he were mystified by the question. "Maybe I didn't feel like working no more today. Maybe I felt like, even though this economy is fucked, I had enough money and didn't need to work the whole goddamn day. Maybe I felt like I wanted to do what I wanted to do." Ralph focused on Sonny. His face hardened. Sonny's stomach turned again. Or maybe I'm here 'cause you want to be the alpha dog now. Is that it? You want to just do whatever the fuck you want to do? Suddenly, Ralph was out of his chair and grabbing Sonny by an arm and the waist of his jeans, he tossed him into the wall, cracking a large hole in it and bringing pictures crashing down on Sonny's head as he hit the floor. I told you no more animals. I said you couldn't bring me no more problems. Do you know what your newest problem did? It got loose, chewed a goddamn hole in the drywall, and then chewed up the wires in the kitchen. The wall in that stove is burnt to hell. I got a call at work. At work! By the fucking fire department telling me they just put out a fire in my kitchen 'cause a goddamn raccoon was living in my motherfucking walls. Good thing I just got the house alarms installed, ain't it? When I got home, I knew just where to look. Your room. And found a broke cage and a hole in your closet. I said to myself, I told that little fucker not to do this shit anymore. But you just went ahead and did it anyway, didn't you? Like what I say, don't mean shit. Just who the fuck do you think you are, boy? Sonny was angry now and yelled back with the same intensity. What'd you do with him? What'd you do with the raccoon, Dad? I called the goddamn animal control, that's what I did. Sonny closed his eyes and exhaled. You better not cry, boy. Sonny opened his eyes, aflame with anger. Fuck you! I'm not crying, you fucking dick! Sonny had never told Ralph fuck you before because of fear of what happened next. Eyes wild, Ralph unbuckled his belt. Sonny jumped up and tried to run into his room, but Ralph caught him by the arm and threw him down to the floor as he whipped his belt out of its loops. Stay down! Ralph yelled. Sonny curled up into a ball on the floor, as his brothers always did, and covered his face as Ralph lifted the folded belt high into the air and brought it down with all his might, over and over again. The first few bites of the belt stunned Sonny, taking his breath away right when he wanted to scream. Ralph had never hit him that hard. Oh, God, he thought. Overhand and backhand, Ralph whooped Sonny on his arms, legs, and back. Sonny retreated into his mind, pretending that he was Superman and could send the pain away. I'm made of steel. Made of... The front door opened, and Ralph stopped. Thank you, God, thought Sonny. Sonny opened one eye to see who it was. It was Wes. Wes threw the door closed behind him, and it was then that he noticed Sonny in the corner with Ralph holding the belt over him. Wes stepped close, but then stopped. His face fell and grew pale. His eyes widened and his breathing picked up. He stood there motionless, staring at Ralph, who was swaying and glaring at him now. Wes glanced at Sonny, who stared at Wes pleadingly, but Wes put on a stern face. What'd he do? What'd he do? Mocked Ralph. Fear trickled back onto Wes's face. Both Wes and Sonny jumped when Ralph yelled again. He fucked up the house! Hundreds, maybe thousands, $1 worth. And why? 'Cause you weren't watching him as close as I told you to, you fucking idiot. That's why. Ralph hauled off and punched Wes in the face, hard, knocking him against the wall and down to the floor next to Sonny. It was incredible, the power that Ralph had, the way he could lay out Wes with just one punch. I can't do every fucking thing, shouted Ralph. Ralph began swinging the belt again, yelling obscenities as he hit Wes and Sonny, both brothers curled into the fetal position and covering their faces with their arms. Wes and Sonny both yelled in pain and pleaded with him to stop, but Ralph yelled and beat them with the belt for what seemed like forever, until the front door opened again. The fuck? Curtis and Brad stepped inside the house. Just get out of here, yelled Wes. Get away from him, yelled Brad as he jumped onto Ralph's back and punched Ralph repeatedly in the head, which surprised the crap out of Sonny. "No!" yelled Wes, ocean blue eyes flashing. Ralph grabbed Brad, and with a grunt and a shocking display of enormous strength, pulled Brad off of his back and then shoved him up onto the wall by the throat and held him there. Choking, Brad's feet weren't touching the floor anymore as he tried to pry his father's hand off his throat. "Don't you never hit me, boy!" Curtis tried to wrench the belt out of Ralph's other hand, but Ralph, still holding Brad, twisted his body and back-kicked Curtis in the stomach, propelling him across the room and sending him crashing into the end table, shattering their mother's crystal lamp that had been sitting on it for all these years. Ralph let go of Brad's throat and then punched him in the face with his other hand the moment Brad's feet hit the floor, knocking him out instantly. Brad slid down the wall into the floor like a sack of potatoes. Ralph drew his foot back to kick Brad, but Wes threw himself in front of Brad just in time, and Ralph's foot connected with Wes's ribs, the same side that had been broken already. Wes's face crunched in intense pain. Curtis scrambled across the room to join his brothers on the floor. He positioned himself in front of the unconscious Brad and next to Wes, who was holding his injured side. Ralph towered over all four of them, his eyes shut tight, and his face lifted up to the sky as he roared with all his might, his hands fisted. "Who's the alpha dog in this house? Who's the fucking alpha dog?" Ralph's shouting woke Brad, but it was Curtis who answered him. "You are, Dad. We know that. Please stop. They're sorry, for real. I want all of you to say it. Now!" In overlapping sentences, all four of Ralph's sons assured him that he was the alpha dog of the house. Ralph slowly lowered the hand that was holding his belt. "Y'all broke the lamp. Your mama's favorite lamp, you dumb shits. One of y'all need to go down to the thrift store and get another one before sundown, or you won't be able to see your hands in front of your fucking faces." He ambled into the hall and then into his room, slamming his door behind him and rattling the house. All four brothers sat up and were silent for several minutes while they calmed down and caught their breaths. Wes scowled terribly. "What the fuck happened?" Curtis asked finally. Wes glared over at Sonny. Sonny frowned harder and bent over, holding his head in his hands. "I took off work early to get a new tat," said Wes, his voice gravelly, motioning to his back, the place he had been saving for a special tattoo. Momentarily, Sonny wondered what Wes had gotten. "I was going to go to someone's house afterward," continued Wes, "but I had a feeling I had to come home." "So did we," said Brad, mystified but excited about the coincidence. "We just had a feeling." "Like an idiot, I did," growled Wes as he wiped the blood from his lip. "Mr. Perfect over there," he motioned to Sonny with a nod, "fucked up bad, really bad. So of course I got blamed for it too." "What'd you do?" Brad asked Sonny. Sonny opened his mouth, but Brad didn't give him a chance to answer. "How could you even think of doing something fucked up enough to make him go apeshit like that? How stupid was that, Sonny? Dude, you need to grow the fuck up." Sonny stood up. "I'm sorry. I didn't..." None of them looked at him. They were all pissed. They were always pissed at the one who was the reason Ralph whooped them. Sonny couldn't find the words, and his brothers didn't seem to care to hear them now anyway. Without another word, he withdrew into his room and quietly closed the door. His feet dragging, he walked over to the mirror above his dresser and looked at himself. His eyes looked so tired. Gingerly, he pulled up his shirt. The welts on his abdomen and back were dark, and there were a lot of them. He lightly ran his fingers over them. They were swelling and would take a while to heal. He'd have to let a few days, maybe a week or more, go by before taking his clothes off in front of his girlfriend. Letting his shirt fall back down, he walked over to his bed and carefully lay on his stomach. His body was stinging and aching almost everywhere. Tears welled in his eyes. Sometimes it's like Dad hates us. I hate Dad. He looked over to his closet. The door was open. A hole gaped in the back wall, and Cracker's cage was empty. Sonny's face scrunched up and he let go, crying as quietly as he could into his pillow. God, I can't take this anymore. Please, you gotta help me. I'll do anything you say, give you my whole life. Just help me. Help us. Mama, please ask God to help us. Change in perspective. Luna was being attacked. Someone was hitting her over and over again with something that really hurt. The force with which she was being struck took her breath away, and she couldn't scream. She couldn't imagine what she could have done to make someone that angry with her. Desperately, she tried to get away, but she couldn't get out of the fetal position because she had to protect her face from the blows. It stopped for a moment, and she opened her eyes, but it was too dark to see anything. Then, suddenly, there was someone next to her. Their presence was comforting, but they were being beaten too. They couldn't help her. Now Luna was being attacked again. Panting, she sat up, holding her teddy bear close in her darkened room. She switched on the light. She was at home in her bed. Her throbbing pinky finger reminded her of the day she'd had. She checked the glowing green digital clock. It was 10 o'clock at night. Wow, I slept a long time, she thought. Her heart was racing, and she still felt like crying. That was a bad one. Thank God that wasn't real. I don't know if someone could survive that. Tears welled in her eyes, and her lips trembled. It was so horrible. Oh, God, will you just stop it? She hissed at herself. It was just a dream. With a deep sigh, she wiped her eyes, put her teddy bear down, and then got up for something to eat. Change in perspective. Someone was mean to Sonny as he walked by them. It hurt him deeply, but also made him angry. Then Sonny was walking quickly to get something when he was tripped and fell down onto his hands and knees. As he hit the cement, he felt his knees get skinned and his pinky finger break. He even heard the snap. He looked at his finger. It was sitting unnaturally at a right angle. Oh, shit! Complete, overwhelming fear overcame him. A deep kind of fear he had never experienced before. He wanted to back up a wall, run away, or... Mama! Suddenly, he was in some sort of hospital, and a doctor was coming at him with a needle. He tried to get away, but his mind became loopy. Someone laid his broken finger on a table and then hit it with some kind of hammer. Slowly, Sonny peeled open his eyes. It was hard to do because they were so swollen. His room was dark. He had been dreaming. He must have gone to sleep. What a weird-ass dream. It was different from the strange dreams that he usually had. Exhausting dreams of traveling the world, searching for something, or maybe someone. He was still on his stomach and rolled over slowly with a grunt. His body was stiff and sore. He looked out of his window to see the moon. It was almost full. A feeling of comfort overcame him, as it always did when he looked at the moon. The soft glow of the lovely moon meant that the day was over. He'd gotten through it, and it was time to rest. But I've been resting for a few hours now, and I'm starving, he thought. He got up and cracked his door open. The house was dark and quiet as he'd hoped. He crept through the hall and into the living room. The curtains were open. In the moonlight, he saw that a new lamp was sitting on the end table, an old 70s ceramic owl lamp. He clicked it on. It gave off a soft, yellow glow. The living room had been cleaned up, and the hole in the wall was freshly patched. Okay, let's see what's in the fridge, he thought. Change in perspective. That night, Luna was sitting at the kitchen table crunching her cereal and thinking about the day. She was thinking about the doctor and how calm he had been, even though her finger looked so freaky. She swallowed and looked up at her mother, who was sitting across from her. You know what, Mom? I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. I think I want to be a doctor. Lisa seemed surprised in a good way. That's great, honey, but are you sure? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that's a fantastic thing to be, but, well, your panic attacks. That's exactly why I want to be one. Did you see how calm that guy was today? He knows a lot of stuff, so he doesn't panic. You know a lot of stuff, so you never panic either. I think just being educated in the stuff that scares you makes you self-assured and strong, calm. That's what I want to be. A knowledgeable, strong, calm doctor. Wow, honey, you really amaze me. You make me so proud, and geez, thank you for the compliment. You know, you get great grades. I'm sure you'll get into a wonderful college and medical school one day. I can't wait to tell your dad. I mean, you should tell your dad. Luna smiled brightly. She hopped a little in her seat and almost did her seal clap, but remembered her finger just in time. Mom, let's buy some medical books online. I want that to be the next thing we learn together. Change in perspective. That same night, neatly dressed in a designer bullet gray suit, Bernard Schultz hoped his expensive attire communicated his deep respect for his master. Although he was quite secure about his rank within the organization, he abhorred the thought of becoming lax in his display of veneration. He stood in the opulent but dark room before the ancient man, his master, with an important update. The old man stared at Schultz, waiting for his personal informant to begin relaying his news. His signature black fedora in his hand, Schultz bowed deeply to his powerful master before standing straight with great dignity, and then began reciting his report. Sire, the Fairfax boy. We have confirmed that he is indeed Reginald Brayburn's son. I've just heard a report that he has been the London people's undefeated underground fighting champion for the last few years in a row. He is 17 now, soon to be 18 on April 7. And like a Brayburn, he is physically powerful, quite formidable for his age. He is conceited and has been arrested for a variety of reasons that include theft, common assault, public drunkenness, fighting, and obscenity. A bit of a hoodlum. His dress says it all. He is a punk. Very much the philanderer, he's known for a witty personality, but his temper is quite short. Some say he seems high-strung, definitely angry. No control, very much like a boy who is furious about his parents' divorce. In short, he's grown physically more powerful, but seems to be a rebel. Still not the type of man who would seek knowledge or care about his father's interests. Sire, I feel relatively certain that this fool will be the destruction of his family's cause. Unless you order his assassination, I shall continue to watch him as he destroys himself and his house. His master said nothing. Schultz's affirmative answer, let the boy destroy himself. All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and read chapter 7, but that will be in a different recording. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.